This is Paul at Downeast Under Creations. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the video. Well, I recently posted a video about how I made a coat rack for a local nonprofit fundraising auction, and I called it the Homestead coat rack, and a lot of people around here seem to like it, so it might bring in some pretty good bids. But I wanted to make something else to complement it, and this was a fairly simple project. It didn't take too long, and once again I used some repurposed material. I used a piece of oak wood that was part of a drawer, some furniture somebody was throwing away, and it wasn't good enough to reuse the furniture itself, so I disassembled it and repurposing the wood for other projects. So this was part of a drawer. And this here is the Keys Please key rack. Why not? If you have a coat rack, you might as well have a key rack. And so I'm going to also donate this to the event, the annual fundraising auction and raffle during Milbridge days. And that's held by the Women for Healthy Rural Living, or WHRL.org or ORG. I'll put a link in the video. I'll also put it in the video description. If you're interested, you can see what's going on. The coat racks you can bid on online because it's also an online auction. But if you notice, these the hooks that I used, these were hand forged. I hand forged them. I have my own homemade forge and anvil and all that stuff. I do a little bit of blacksmith stuff now and then. And I hand forged all these little hooks out of square cut horseshoe nails. And I did dozens of these several years ago, and I sold a bunch of these at a craft fair, and $3 each, and they sold like hotcakes. I only have I have less than a dozen of them left. So I took 5 of them, used them for my key rack, some hangers on the back so you can hang it up, and yeah, not much to it. I put Keys Please on it. That's carved out on my CNC machine. And so as you watch the video, you'll see how I made it. Not too difficult. You could do one yourself. And if you don't have a CNC machine, you could paint a graphic or logo or texting. You could paint it on. You don't have to necessarily carve it out. There's a lot of different things you can do. You can use that Mod Podge, decoupage, whatever they call it. You can, put some sort of graphic on there. There's all kinds of things you can do. Anyway, please share the video, give it a like, subscribe, ring the little bell. You know what to do. Helps me out a lot, keeps my channel growing, and I very much appreciate it. And thanks for watching. In a previous video, you saw me make a coat rack, sort of a rustic coat rack using some horseshoes as the hooks. And for the same nonprofit fundraising auction, WHRL, Women for Healthy Rural Living, or WHRL.org, I thought I would also add something else. And rather than a coat rack, I'm going to make a simple key rack. Now the key rack wouldn't be in the auction. That's probably going to be a raffle item. But what I have here is an old piece of white oak. It was part of a drawer from a piece of furniture that I had disassembled to reclaim the wood. So I'm just going to use a small portion of this and put some hooks on it, and I'm going to put this in my CNC machine and just put a little bit of a little graphic or something on there. And right now, before I do that, I'm just going to clean up the wood a little bit on each side just to see what the grain looks like, and then I'll go from there. I didn't sand the whole thing because I'm only going to use a small portion of it. I just wanted to clean it up a little, and I kind of like that. And I don't see any warpage or twisting, so it's flat. It's well dried out. It was a piece of furniture. It's part of the drawer. I think that looks good. I think I can use that. So I think we're good to go. So now I'm going to mark the end of where this coat rack is going to be cutting off that part. And I'm just going to measure up a little bit. And, I think right about here. What I'm doing is I'm making a mark. This is where I set up my CNC machine when I want to put in any graphics or lettering. You have to start somewhere, and this is going to be the point, the base point of where I set up the machine, and then the computer knows where to guide the router from that point. Everything stems from this point. So I won't get into all the specifics, but it's just the way the program works. So now I know where I want to mark it, and a lot of this is all going to be trimmed off afterwards. I'm just going to leave everything in place because when I go to clamp it up on the wasteboard and set up the machine, the clamps won't get in the way of the router. I have plenty of room to work with, and it allows for any mistakes or anything, and I can do trimming later. And so that's going to work out just fine. Okay, so what I'm doing now, while I'm waiting, I have a very old computer, and it takes a long time to warm up and come up online, but it works the CNC okay. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the wood and I'm putting it on the wasteboard, and I'm just getting it set up right now. I got to get it clamped into place, and once it's all clamped in, I'll be good to go. And it's easy to do. I have just little clamps here. They mount into the board, into the wasteboard. The wasteboard has threaded inserts in it that you can easily take threaded clamps. Okay, I've got that down, and I just need a couple of clamps on the other side. You won't be able to see it because the machine's in the way, but it's relatively easy to get to for me, and there's not a lot of force on this. It doesn't have to be clamped too tight because I'm only doing some graphics, so I'm not cutting all the way through to the material down to the wasteboard, so it's not like cutting out a part. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this little button that says carve, and now I'm going to tell it to home the machine. And now it sets the machine at its home position because it could have been moved a little bit when I was setting it up. And I've already measured the material. I already know what it is, so I can click that. I know it's clamped down. I can click that, and I know I have the bit in place. So now we want to put the probe in because the machine has to know what depth to start at. And so there's software available. This little piece plugs in electrically. We know how thick this is. That's all programmed into the software. And when the probe comes down, as soon as it touches, it stops. And then it compensates for this thickness. And then when it begins cutting, it knows how deep to go into the wood, which I've already programmed into the machine when I did the design. So before I set probe, right here it says jog the machine. I have to move the machine over. And as I hit these, when I hit these little controls, let's see, here we go. I want to move it back. The idea is I want to center it over that mark I made. But before I actually center it, all I really care though is getting it over the material itself so I can use the probe and set the depth, and then I can do the final matchup there. And this is the piece I'm talking about. It goes just under here, and I have to plug it in. just plug it into that little socket there. You take this little clamp, and it's got to get grounded on here, and then we go back over here, and I'm going to probe, and I can confirm the position. It's over the material. We already know that that it's connected and the clip is attached. So now it says no contact. Well, what I have to do here is I just have to take this piece and I have to touch it. And as I touch it, now contact has been made and the touch plate is in place. So I can start probing. Okay, now we've got the depth set and we're good to go. Now all I have to do is I just have to make the machine line up with the little X mark that I had made. So I can remove the probe now. And now it's just a matter of lining things up. Okay, you can see now the point is lined up with that little X that I made. So it's exactly where I want it. And now I can go ahead and I can turn the spindle on the machine, and then I can also tell the computer to go ahead and start carving. So first of all, let's just tell the computer that the Z probe is put away. We've set the XY0. I'm going to skip the dust shoe, and now I have to tell it to spin. Let's turn on the spindle. The spindle is on, and we can carve. Alright, mission complete. So now we can home the machine back to its resting place where it was, and I'll take care of that, and I can take the piece out and we'll go from there. Okay, I've marked the width that has to be cut, and I've marked the ends where it's going to be cut, and then I also measured out where I'm going to put the key hooks, and I took an awl and I made marks here so I know where those are going to be mounted. The only other thing now is I'm just going to take this little round cap so I can put rounded edges, because I think it will look a little bit better with rounded corners. So that's just a little addition. Yeah, I think that will look better, because I think it looks a little bit too crude with the with just a hard angle like that, the sharp corner. This is going to look much better. And now I'm going to cut it out on my bandsaw. Now I could use my my chop saw to cut the ends and run the table saw to rip these lengthwise, and then use the bandsaw to cut the corners. But I'm a little too lazy to do all that. I'm just going to use the bandsaw for the whole thing. So now this is pretty much a little bit of a sanding operation, just to clean it up a little, but it won't require very much. So where the CNC router cut out the letters, it did a pretty good job. It's pretty smooth in there, but there are a few little fuzzies left behind. So I have a small wire brush, and I'm just going to go in there, and this just takes the little fuzzies right out of there. So it's going to look a lot better once it gets paint, if I paint it. I'm still thinking about the final finish. This is all that's required there. Yep, I got all the fuzzies out, nice and clean, nice clean letters. You can see I've got marks with the awl, where I used the awl to mark where the hooks are going to go. So now I can start the finish work. I'm using a clear lacquer, and the reason I'm using a clear lacquer is so that I can seal the wood before I do any painting, because I don't want any paint to bleed or whatever when I'm doing the letters, and the lacquer will seal the wood. Now I could use a shellac, but the problem with using shellac is that it'll leave an orange tint. Even the clear shellac will leave a darker orangey tint to it, and almost anything will darken it. And even this makes the wood look a little darker, but I get a clearer base on there, so that's why I went with it. Another thing too with using lacquer is that it dries very, very quickly. You don't have to wait a long time for it to dry before you can start sanding or doing other things with it. So what you're looking at here are the hooks that I'm going to use for the key rack. And these little hooks here were hand forged from square cut horseshoe nails. And I did it in my own anvil and home forge a few years ago. I made dozens of these things, each one hand forged, and I sold these at a craft fair. Oh, I had dozens and dozens of them. I sold for about $3 each, and this is all that's left. I don't have many left, but I'm going to use about 5 of these on the new key rack that I'm making, and so I think it'll look pretty good. I think that'll look very nice. What do you think? Well, folks, thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and if you do subscribe, remember to ring that little bell so that you can be notified of any new videos that are released. And thanks again for watching.